from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Agday, the 2018 wheat harvest begins, and growers in Louisiana say it's proving to be a good year. Agribusiness, corn price potential.
As we move into the summer, I think the big thing that's going to push it is going to be weather. And that's not just going to be North American, that's going to be South American weather.
The beef herd expansion ends as drought forces cows to town, and using a waste product to improve field fertility.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. While northern farmers push to finish planting and side-dressing summer crops, in the south, wheat harvest now underway. According to the latest crop progress report, in Texas, 20% of the crop is harvested. That's 7 points ahead of the 5-year average. But it's a pretty rough crop. 54% rated poor to very poor. Another third is fair. Now, winter wheat harvest also getting underway in Georgia with about a quarter of the fields cut. It's a couple points behind average, and 48% there rated good to excellent. While in Louisiana, 44% is harvested, which is well ahead of average. 70% in that state rated as good to excellent. Louisiana has seen a drastic reduction in wheat acres because of low yields and poor quality, primarily caused by scab disease. But this year, disease pressure was very low. And those growers who did plant wheat produced an excellent crop. LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux has details.
Just a few years ago, Louisiana farmers grew nearly 300,000 acres of wheat statewide. But after 2 consecutive years of poor results, many farmers opted not to plant wheat because the risk was not worth the reward.
There wasn't a whole lot of acreage to begin with. I mean, we're down even from last year from 20,000 down to about an estimated 15,000 acres of wheat.
That would make this year's crop the smallest on record, beating the record low set last year. But this year was a different story from the 2 previous years.
Yeah, if you were a wheat producer this year, you probably got your money's worth.
Good weather at planting helped, a cool winter stimulated growth, and disease pressure was virtually non-existent.
In 30 years of walking wheat fields, this is the lightest disease I've seen in the state.
Optimal growing conditions allowed farmers to harvest one of the highest bushels per acre yields in quite some time.
What's out there really has performed well. The yields that I'm hearing are up in the 70s in some places. Test weights are high 50s, even low 60s.
With this crop being so successful, Padgett believes it will spur more growers to plant next season.
We've had the perfect growing season, and I'm hoping that we probably will be trending up. I suspect we will.
Because the weather was dry, many producers got their wheat out quickly, which allowed them to plant soybeans immediately after the wheat harvest. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
Thanks, Craig. The Environmental Protection Agency is now facing a lawsuit from several farm groups regarding the RFS waivers recently granted. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. Court of Appeals by the Renewable Fuels Association, National Corn Growers Association, American Coalition for Ethanol, and the National Farmers Union. Plaintiffs challenged that the EPA granted waivers to refineries that were not small, and recent financial disclosures reveal that 2 of those companies that received waivers saved a collective $170 million in compliance costs. In the verbal jousting match between the U.S. and China, China's government accusing the Trump administration Wednesday of hurting its credibility by acting erratically on trade, and the Asian nation vowing to fight back if Washington goes ahead with a threatened tariff hike. A foreign ministry spokeswoman complained that the U.S. decision to renew a threat to raise duties on $50 billion list of Chinese goods conflicts with an agreement in mid-May aimed at settling that dispute. This latest spat comes as Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross is scheduled to visit Beijing Saturday for more talks. But it's the uncertainty surrounding trade adding pressure to commodity markets this week.
I think may have sparked this week's sell-off. You know, we've been back and forth with this trade war, and as recently as last Sunday, we had a truce, and both sides had agreed that these tariffs would be no more and that talks would be ongoing. So the White House kind of going back on their word and sending these grain markets sharply lower here this week.
Vaclavic says the USDA's crop progress report Tuesday showing the second best corn condition rating on record, also adding to the bearish tone in the market this week. Dairy producers have one more day to sign up for the Margin Protection Program. Farmers have until June 1st to select their new MPP coverage, and the program is retroactive to January of 2018. However, some producers are reluctant to sign up for that program after bad experiences in the past. American Farm Bureau says for more than 90% of farmers previously enrolled in the program, coverage for 2018 is guaranteed to be profitable. A change from the past 4 years where the program offered little financial support to a struggling dairy industry. That's why the National Milk Producers Federation is encouraging producers to take another look at MPP.
And the problem is that the program, when it was first implemented 4 years ago, Congress watered down some of the economic calculations used to calculate the margin between feed costs and milk prices. And a lot of people tried it the first year, and then it didn't generate any economic activity, and so they walked away from it, essentially. So now what we need to do is say, hey, even though you left a bad taste in your mouth the first go-round, you really need to take a second look at it. And so that's the situation this year.
Galen says NMPF is working on other enhancements in the next farm bill to make the program even more affordable and allow a broader range of coverage. Now, also on the farm bill front, when the House returns, it will begin the process of prepping for another farm bill vote in mid to late June. Meanwhile, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell telling the Wall Street Journal that the Senate's version of a farm bill does not have to include targeted work requirements for SNAP benefits. The Senate version also expected in June. McConnell saying, quote, "We need to have a farm bill with or without the food stamp work requirements." Cindy Clausen's in once again for Mike Hoffman. She has today's crop comments. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Clinton. We checked out some crop comments on AgWeb. A farmer in Polk County, Iowa says he just finished planting soybeans in dust and 102-degree temperatures. It's been in the 90s all week in much of the Corn Belt. We also heard from a crop reporter in St. Charles Parish, Louisiana. These comments were posted on the weekly NASS report prior to Tropical Storm Alberto. But the reporter said dry conditions in combination with high summer heat are beginning to cause plant stress on crops. Sugarcane, soybeans, and pasture grass is exhibiting slow growth for this time of the year. Let's check on that wind forecast for you, and it looks like as we head through the next 24 hours, we'll see a lot from the Great Lakes down into the plains, but watch in the Four Corners region as we see some windy conditions there late in the day and into tonight. As we head into your Friday, we're going to start to see those winds picking up, especially in the northern and central plains, so we'll keep an eye on that for you. That's a look at your national forecast, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
When we come back, we'll look at corn market potential given the current trade and planting environment. Later, turning a waste product into soil fertility superfood. We're off to the Volunteer State today on In the Country. In agribusiness, grains trading sharply in the red. December corn futures erasing its May gains in just 2 days. In livestock, going green midweek. Let's get some perspective from our friends on the floor of the CME in Chicago.
The limit up markets in the live cattle here today, and the feeder cattle also very strong. Meanwhile, the hogs are also having a pretty strong day. The live cattle market being led higher by the cash market, the wholesale prices are significantly higher today. And that's really led to some buying interest in the live cattle. Also, the weather has as well. It's been very hot and dry out in the Great Plains again, and that's bringing some ideas that we're seeing some stress to cattle. Grain markets have been generally lower here today at the CME. The market's really reacting to some rains here in the eastern Midwest from the Mississippi River to the east. There's some good rains moving through for a crop that really needs it, but also to the crop condition ratings, especially for corn, that showed some really top condition for corn. The good to excellent rating just about as high to start off a growing season as anybody can remember. So definitely a reason to be selling the market down. The outside markets, the dollar and things like that, even though the dollar is lower, that doesn't seem to be really playing much of an effect on the market. Thanks very much. This is Jack Scoville. I'm Vice President of Price Futures Group here in the CME Group floor with some comments for the markets today.
Corn is all about planet, and while producers watch the weather, price potential continues to be a hot topic of conversation. That's where Tyne Morgan picks things up in today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Mike North of Commodity Risk Management Group. Mike, looking at these corn prices, really, what is it going to take to lift the lid? What is it going to take for us to move corn prices higher?
Well, we've got the crop basically in the ground, 81% planted now. We've got a pretty good comfort with where we're at in terms of our crop. As we move into the summer, I think the big thing that's going to push it is going to be weather. And that's not just going to be North American, that's going to be South American weather. How is that safrinha crop performing? What does our crop look like? Is it under stress? We've got enough talk of demand going right now. We can't afford any supply snafus. So weather's going to be your big fundamental that'll push the market, but let's not overlook the funds. The funds have a lot of room to be able to add to their position and to continue to push prices higher if they perceive that there's some great things happening in the market.
Mike, when I talked to some economists and analysts earlier in the year and we talked about corn prices, they said really what needs to happen is maybe we need more domestic demand, E15, and we need possibly more corn to go to China. Well, we possibly have a framework with China in place, and we possibly have the administration supporting E15. Is that enough to really move prices considerably higher?
It is. Now that we've gotten rid of 2 million acres, we'll see what the government does with that in June. And then if weather steps in and plays with the yield at all, those combination of things are enough to move prices higher. 450 would be a good number if all of that came together, and possibly beyond. There is room for it to go beyond 450 and test levels like $4.80 or $5 if the right combination of things take place.
All right, Mike North of Commodity Risk Management Group, thank you so much for joining us. Stay with us. We need to take a quick break here on Ag Day, and then we'll have much more.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here with Cindy Clausen, looking at the weather map. And Cindy, Alberta moved through pretty quickly, but now it's like, well, what's next? What are we expecting for weather?
What's next? Well, a lot of folks are going to be appreciating some cooler and drier air as we get into the weekend, especially in the eastern parts of the Corn Belt that haven't quite seen the cooler air just yet. Let's take a look at the map. The remnants of subtropical storm Alberto just kind of phased with this northern system. So as we head through the day today, we'll see some moisture, especially in the eastern part of the country around the low. And we've got some just unsettled weather in the southeast. We've got this cold front coming through. It's still going to be warm for a lot of the eastern Corn Belt today and still humid, but eventually we're going to see some cooler air, especially later on Friday. We have a front that's draped into the northwest. We'll see some moisture there, some showers and some thunderstorms. Notice how things kind of start to phase a little bit in the eastern part of the country. So we still have a couple of fronts there, so that will help to focus some showers and some thunderstorms. Once this front sinks further to the south, that's when we really start to see the cooler and drier air coming in, especially behind that front later on in the day. As we get into later on Friday, we'll start to see another system entering the northern plain states. Now, precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours, a lot of this has been from Alberto, even going up into the Great Lakes, sucking a little moisture out of Lake Michigan as it did. And as we head into the next 24 hours, you can see everything kind of moves on off to the east, and you'll see that system starting to approach the plain states as well. What about those temperatures? Still hot. We're looking at upper 80s, a lot of 90s in the nation's midsection, some cooler 60s as you get off into the northwestern United States. But watch what happens as we get into your Friday forecast. Temperatures still on the muggy and warm side as we head into the overnight hours for a lot of the nation, except for the Pacific Northwest. But Friday's high temperatures will be a little cooler. You start to see that cold front sinking on down south. It's still going to be quite hot, though, especially in the southern plains. Heading into your jet stream forecast, ridge starting to move off there, but it is kind of reinforced by a secondary ridge. So we're going to be seeing warm temperatures for the most part, though it does even out a little bit, especially along the northern tier of states. Looks like we've got another trough coming in later on as we get into next week. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Fort Benton, Montana, cooler with showers and thunderstorms for you today and a high of 69 degrees. Jasper, Texas, mostly sunny and hot with a high of 94 degrees. And Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania, showers and thunderstorms with a high of 71.
Up next, we'll look at the cattle industry with our corporate partners over Drovers and Soil Fertility Solutions from Tennessee.
I'm Charles Denny. This material could have gone into a landfill. Instead, it's being spread on Tennessee row crop land to improve soil fertility. That story from Jackson, Tennessee, coming up on Ag Day.
And news from our partners at Drovers, U.S. beef cow slaughter increasing 10% through mid-April. Analysts say it's due in part to forced herd liquidation stemming from drought in the south central plains. Increase in cow slaughter also indicating the current expansion phase of the cattle cycle has ended.
The rise in cow slaughter comes at a time when fed steer and heifer slaughter has reached its highest level in 5 years. And last week's Cattle on Feed report found 5% more cattle in feedlots than last year. That means total beef production is on pace to increase 7.5% during the second quarter, with a total 2018 increase of nearly 5%. Dry weather and limited winter grazing pushed cattle to feedlots early, which will cause disruptions in the fed cattle marketing rate through August and reduce the number of cattle harvested this fall.
Henderson says in the near term, increasing beef supplies will continue to pressure a fed cattle market that has slipped $10 per hundredweight the past 2 weeks. He also says the silver lining is that packer margins are somewhere between $200 and $300 per head, which should encourage aggressive buying. Hamburgers may help pave the path to peace in Pyongyang. New reports Wednesday indicating that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may offer to open a Western hamburger franchise as a show of goodwill. The report cites U.S. security officials that suggest Kim may be less anxious to eliminate all of its nuclear weapons, but as a peaceful gesture, may offer a hamburger compromise, knowing President Trump's affinity for beef. Now to the dairy side. Our partners at Farm Journal's Milk reporting Dean Foods continues to struggle in the marketplace. The company recently announcing plans to close 2 processing plants, one in Pennsylvania, the other in Massachusetts. As you may remember, earlier this year, Dean's notified more than 100 producers that their milk contracts were to be terminated by May 31st. Having terminated those contracts, Dean Foods says more consolidation could occur over the next 18 months. Farm Journal's Milk says as many as 7 additional plants have been rumored to be targeted, although there's been no official word from Dean's. All right, when we come back, finding new ways to improve soil fertility using a waste product. A look at biochar after the break.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
A source of waste once destined for a landfill could soon enhance Tennessee farmland and row crops. UT's Institute of Agriculture is spreading the product biochar on fields in a special experiment. In this video provided by the UT Institute of Agriculture, Charles Denny shows how this product could improve soil fertility.
Sort of thing you'd find at the beach.
Jackson, Tennessee is a long way from the ocean, but you'd never know it looking at what soil scientist Forbes Walker is digging up. This field is pretty much solid sand, deposited from a nearby creek when it floods. Sand zaps soil nutrients and hurts crop yield. But help is coming in the form of this substance. Biochar is being spread on fields at UT's Ag Research Center with hopes of improving soil fertility.
So what we're trying to do is amend these sand deposits with biochar, increase the water holding capacity, thereby increase the potential for the crops to grow. And then over time, we'll be following these things over time, we should start to see organic matter build up.
This is where UT Ag Research stores a large supply of biochar. It gets its name because it looks like charcoal and is rich in carbon and other nutrients. Biochar is made at this Lebanon plant, where a gasification process creates the substance from materials that would have gone into a landfill. Biochar can be made from tires, biosolid waste, and wood products.
In Tennessee and indeed south-wide, we are constantly looking for new markets for wood products, particularly the lower grade products. In other words, hardwood timber that's difficult to sell on the open market. And so biochar is a potential solution for that.
Back on the Knoxville Ag campus, PhD candidate Nastaran Basiri Jaromi conducts research into mixing biochar with pine bark, sort of mulch on steroids. She then put the substance on greenhouse plants like hydrangeas.
Biochar help the hydrangea plants and reduce the water consumption by at least 1/3. And it also reduced the amount of leachate, the water that comes out of the pots. So by reducing the leachate, it would also reduce the nutrient losses.
UTIA will put tons of biochar on Tennessee land, grow crops there this summer, and then measure the yields. But before planting, these fields get a renovation, spread the wealth and the nutrients. This is Charles Denny reporting.
Thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spend part of your day with us. For Cindy Clausen and all of us here at Agday, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.